Shri Vishnu.
Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srjamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushritam Dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srjamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srjamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge
Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Vihari Jai
Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari
Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Vihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari
Jai Gopi Jannavallabha Jai Girivaradhari Jai Gopi
Jannavallabha Jaya Girivaradhari
Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Vihari Jai
Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari
Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Jaya Kunja Vihari.
Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Kunja Vihari. Jai
Radha Madhava. Jaya Kunja Vihari.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana. Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Sriman Narayana.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Surya Vangsha Jayate.
Surya Vangsha Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society Jayate.
Om Hari Om. Om Tat Sat. Wonderful. He's practicing his mantras. Very nice. Well, welcome everyone. Namaste. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the live stream Satsangha of the International Sanatana Dharma Society. As people know, we are here live in our temple, in our beautiful temple, becoming more beautiful every day actually. Our beautiful temple and world headquarters of the International Sanatana Dharma Society, the movement that is presenting this live stream to you. What is the International Sanatana Dharma Society? Some people may ask. Well, I've discussed this many times, and I'm going to give you the very smallest nutshell of what the International Sanatana Dharma Society is. It is a movement in the truest sense of that term. It's not just an organization. It's not just a nonprofit. It's not just a religious organization or any other sort of man-made, constructed institution, the likes of which most people can think about. This is truly a movement. It is a movement to do many things, actually. In fact, if I had to list them all, we would be here for an hour just listing them. But let me just say this to cut to the chase. The ISDS exists primarily to reconstruct and to create a Vedic civilization upon the earth now, today, the likes of which we have not seen in over 5,000 years. That's our goal. That's what we are doing. The ISDS is my movement as the Acharya, but more than that, it is our movement, all of our devotees of the ISDS, of which there are thousands throughout the world, actually at this point, many thousands. But more than this, it is not merely even our movement. The International Sanatana Dharma Society represents nothing less than the movement of God upon the face of the earth today. That's what this movement is. And what is the evidence of that? That thousands of individuals have felt themselves moved by the presence and the grace of God, who are connected to our movement. All that being said, our time is limited, so I want to jump into our talk for today. And just to let people know, this is part 2 of the talk that we did with the last live stream. So this is actually part 2. We'll be continuing with the verses that we just didn't have time for the last time. And we're going to be talking about giving, about the importance of giving spiritually. And let me just talk about that for a moment before we dive into the verses that we're going to look at. And what I need to say about this is something that's very important. You know, people hear this word all the time. Oh, so many nonprofits. Oh, please give, etc. That's not the sense so much in which we're speaking about this term of giving. Certainly that too. Any sort of movement, including the ISDS, etc. Oh, we need you to give, we need you to donate, etc. But really, interestingly, giving itself is at the very heart of what it means to be spiritual in any true, legitimate, and authentic sense of that word. basically we can divide the world of religion into two categories. Really, there are other categories too. As people know, I'm very systematic about when I speak about religion. But we can also see religion in these two categories. Spirituality. There is that spirituality that trains us to give, and then that spirituality that trains us to do almost the opposite. That form of spirituality, the latter, is let's say the form of spirituality of a tiny minority of individuals who will never ever experience true happiness in their life. Oh, I've known hundreds of such individuals. I've spoken to them face to face, 2 feet away from my face. Individuals for whom their idea of spirituality is not giving but taking. And in my existence, I have never known one to be truly happy. So, what is true spirituality? One could say, in a way, it is training ourselves to give. So thus, sadly, the very opposite of what many New Age people think, or again, any form of self-involved kind of spirituality, where it's all me. What do I get? I want this, I want that, I want to meet my twin flame, I want money, I want prosperity, I want fame, I want this, I want that, me and me and me, I. True spirituality is the opposite of all that. What true spirituality is, and more, for those individuals out there who, whatever your path is, you are a spiritual, or at least you consider yourself a spiritual practitioner, that is, you're actually practicing something. True spiritual practice is, in a way, one thing, and that is for the totality of our lives. Oh no, not 1 year and then you start a YouTube channel and you think you're an enlightened being. No. For the totality of our lives, true spiritual practice is training ourselves to give of ourselves more and more and more deeply, with more sincerity, with more meaningfulness, actually. We can give in a way that's meaningless. Oh, I'm worth $1 billion. Oh, yes. Oh, here you go. Here's $1. Better than nothing, but not much better than nothing. So what it means to be a spiritual practitioner is learning indeed how to give of ourselves, how to do self-sacrifice, how to perform self-surrender of ourselves in such a way that rather than giving in to ego, telling us, oh, I should be the center of all things, everything good in this world should come to me, which is the root of our illusion, the root of our ignorance. True spirituality teaches us to, no, let me now train myself, and it will take years, decades of training to go as deep within as I need to transform myself. Let me now train myself to think in this way. I am to give. I am to give to others, to those who I love. Oh, sure, absolutely. But more, I am to give to those who I don't necessarily know. I am to have compassion. I am to have empathy. I am to give to those around me who need me. I am to give to God, etc., in such a way that it comes to the point where we have transcended this false ego and this illusion, this ignorance. So that is why this talk, these two talks about giving, is of such importance. In a way, you could say this is the very heart of sadhana. This is why you observed a short time ago we did puja. What do we do in puja? It's hilarious to even think. When you go to a temple, is it the idea that you go to the altar and, oh, there's a nice apple, let me grab that, and oh, there's some nice incense, that smells really good, let me bring that home with me. Oh, the murtis have some very nice flowers around them, let me grab those and bring them home to decorate my home. We don't go to a temple to take and take and take. Oh, internally, sadly, a lot of people do think that way. They won't necessarily physically take something, but they go to the temple really to take internally. They want. God, give me this, give me this, give me this, give me this. In actuality, when you see a puja, what are we doing? With great humility, we are offering, we are giving to God. And this is the idea. This is practice. We are here in this lifetime doing our spiritual practice precisely as practice, such that hopefully by the end of our lives, we are fully surrendered at the feet of God, with the idea of giving to God. So that's what these verses are talking about. So all that being said, let's go through these verses now And I'm looking at the time. We have a nice amount of time. We will have time for questions and answers afterwards. First, the last time we were together, we did the first 2 verses, and that is from Parama-Samhita Pancharatra. We did chapter 12, verses 40, 41, and 42, so 3 verses. But I want to read these again quickly. I'm not going to comment on them because I did last time, but just so people remember what is the general gist of what these verses are speaking of. So first, whoever by either encouragement or by the grant of money makes the best efforts to help guests, preceptors, acharyas, servants in grief, the great ones who are guardians of dharma, temples of the gods, ascetics living by alms, cows, Vaishnavas in large numbers. This is the best means of helping others that one can perform with his body. Very good. So these are the verses that we looked at last time. Now let's look at the rest of the verses that we will comment on today. Now we're going to look at, again, chapter 12, but now verse 43 of Parama-Samhita Pancharatra. And it proceeds in this way. Among animals, cows are worthy of respect. Men are more worthy of respect than these. Brahmanas, among men, deserve more respect than other men. More than brahmanas, mendicant ascetics. More deserving of respect than these ascetics are yogis, those who habitually contemplate on the Supreme. So very nice, very systematic. Again, let me just say this as an aside. And this is true for many of our people who are here, but also many individuals who are connected to the ISDS. I've seen this over the decades. We love literature. We love literature. I'm somebody who loves literature. I've studied ancient literature from Homer to Mahabharata to pretty much any epic you can mention. Even epics that people have never even heard of, I've probably read them. And when you look at the Vedic scriptures specifically, they are fascinating in how they are constructed. This verse is fascinating in how it's constructed. It is a hierarchy, The very center philosophically, as far as philosophy, cosmology of Sanatana Dharma, interestingly, is hierarchy. So this is a very interesting thing. I remember once I met a person who, he's still alive, but I met with him, maybe 20 years ago or more, maybe 21 years ago. And he was a public intellectual who commented on Hinduism all the time. And we met for lunch. This was on the East Coast. And it was very nice, very good person otherwise. But he treated me to lunch and we had a meeting. And we were talking about Sanatana Dharma. And I remember him commenting in a usual neo-Hindu sort of way about how, what is so wonderful about Hinduism is that we believe everyone is equal and we don't believe in hierarchy. And I let him finish, just to be polite. And I said, actually, the truth of the matter is hierarchy is at the very center of every single scripture, concept, philosophical school of Sanatana Dharma. And then I went on to explain to him how that's the case. And he sat there and listened and listened and listened. And at the end of the conversation, he didn't have much to say. He couldn't refute anything I said because I was going through a slew of the Vedic scriptures. And at the end, he just kind of nodded, very interesting. And that was the end of that conversation. But hierarchy is at the very heart of Sanatana Dharma, and you see that here. You see that in hundreds and thousands of verses, actually. But let's go through this. This is the hierarchy. Among animals. Now, first, why does it start with animals? We're starting from the bottom and going up. It's understood that in Sanatana Dharma, do we respect animals? Do we love animals? Oh, you better believe we do. That is why we are vegetarian. We are vegetarian really for every reason. It's a healthy lifestyle, etc., etc. It makes sense on so many levels, economically, in so many ways. But primarily we are vegetarian because we believe in living a life of nonviolence. We don't believe in harming animals. And this also helps us spiritually to live this sort of lifestyle. But that's true on the one hand. On the other hand, we're very realistic. We don't believe, as some more fanatical individuals do, some more fanatical and not very intelligent animal rights activists. We don't believe that animals are equal to humans, that animals should be running for parliament, etc. No, we're not silly about things like this. We understand that there's hierarchy, so we respect all beings. Again, for those who want to lecture us about animal equality, no, we don't eat animals. We love animals. We take care of animals, etc. But this is why we're starting at the lowest echelon. Among animals, of all animals, it is the cow who is most worthy of respect. Now, why is this the case? Let me talk about this for a moment, because I have in the past, but not for a long time, actually. In fact, I used to talk about this a lot more until it just got to the point where I figured, well, people must understand this by now. But let me just mention this for anyone out there who may be a little bit new. We do not worship cows. Cows are not our God. I will never forget when, I won't give the specifics about this to not embarrass anyone, but let me just say I was attending a Christian lecture, and there was a nun who was speaking about this, and there was a large grouping of people, and I was very young. I was a child at the time, so I was not really in a position to argue back or anything. I was very young. I am guessing maybe about 7 years old. And the nun began talking about Hinduism, and she literally said, oh yes, and the Hindus, oh of course, caste system, they believe in the caste system, etc. And oh, they worship cows. They think that cows are God. The cows are their God. And I remember thinking about this when I was, again, maybe about 7 years old, and thinking, how odd. And what I was thinking was not how odd that they would think that, but how odd that she would say that. Because even at 7, I could tell that this was a unsophisticated and very mean-spirited polemic attack. It wasn't actually the fact, because I understood 1 billion people in the world couldn't be that stupid to think that God is a cow. And afterwards, when I learned more about Sanatana Dharma, of course, I realized that was correct. We do respect cows for, again, many reasons. At some point, I'll have to give an hour-long lecture about why it is that we respect cows so much. Cows are wonderful beings. They eat very little. They eat something that to us we walk upon. We don't even notice. They eat grass. And yet they give us milk. And again, sorry for the vegans out there. We're not vegan. Vegans are individuals who are going to end up being very unhealthy, if not already. Milk is the most nutritious thing that a human being can consume. They eat nothing and they give us milk, which is the most amazing thing. And they represent sattva, they represent goodness, they represent spirituality, they represent dharma. It's for that reason that we respect the cow among all animals. So, that being said, let's go on to the next sentence here. Men are more worthy of respect than these. So indeed, we respect cows, but human beings we consider to be more important. If it's a matter of, saving a cow versus saving a human being, we're going to save the human being, without doubt. We respect the cow, but we understand that humans, we are to offer even more respect toward. Why? The obvious reasons, but it goes deeper than the obvious reasons. What are the obvious reasons? Because human beings you can interact with, human beings are intelligent, human beings you can communicate with, and they also can communicate their thoughts, and on and on and on. Those are secondary, actually. The reason why we respect human beings more so than cows or any animals is because the human being is an Atman in a specific form of life who now, if they are wise, they can know God. They now have been equipped with everything, every tool that they need to know God. And it's for that reason that we respect humans very, very much. But now let's go on. Brahmanas among men deserve more respect than other men. So very nice. Very nice. So again, this hierarchy going higher and higher and higher. So we respect all animals, but of those we respect cows the most. We respect humans more than any animal, including cow. But among all humans, we respect the brahmanas the most. Now, what is meant by the brahmana? Again, not the caste sense of this word. We do not follow caste. Caste is a Portuguese word, castus. You do not find caste in Sanatana Dharma. You do, however, find Varna, and that we respect. So a Brahmana is an individual who, among all humans, it is their specific psychophysical nature that they are born sattvic. They are born individuals who they naturally cultivate the finer qualities within themselves naturally. They naturally have virtue. They naturally are more spiritual, more pure, more clean, etc. Those are the Brahmanas of our world. So of all humans, we respect the Brahmanas the most, and because they have those qualities. Now let's go on, because it keeps going higher and higher and higher. Again, this is hierarchy. More than Brahmanas, mendicant ascetics. So interestingly, among all the Brahmanas, some of the Brahmanas, again, they're all good people, but some of them are priests. That is, they focus primarily on doing ritual. Some are teachers, which is absolutely wonderful. But the mendicant ascetic is someone who has gone further than even the Brahmana. And that is that they are doing serious spiritual practice in order to know truth. They are a mendicant, meaning that they have taken a vow of poverty, and more, they are an ascetic. What does that mean? They are what in Sanskrit is called tapasvi, one who does tapasya. And what that means is they choose a life that's difficult. And in what way? In every way. They challenge themselves. They challenge themselves in every way to see how strong they can be, to see how much they can go without, etc. So a mendicant will, sometimes sleep on the floor. They'll own very few possessions, etc., etc. So among Brahmanas, the mendicant ascetics are even more respected. But it goes on. More deserving of respect than these ascetics are yogis, those who habitually contemplate the Supreme. So very nice. Of all those ascetics, you see, when we talk about ascetics, mendicant ascetics, even that is a broad category. These people are not all yogis. Indeed, we know that we find ascetics like these in many cultures, even in the West, in Christianity, for example. In Orthodox Christianity, Catholicism very specifically, not so much the Protestant churches, but in those former churches, we find monks, Franciscan monks, Benedictine monks, etc., who, they are ascetics, but they're not necessarily yogis. They know nothing about yoga. They don't know how to do meditation per se, how to do yoga itself, so they're not yogis. So of all of these mendicant ascetics who we can talk about, monks, etc., it is the yogis who we respect even more. Why? They know what they're doing, and they are practicing systematic spiritual practice. That's the yogi. All right, that ends this verse. Let's go on to the next, because it continues with what is being said here. And these are two verses combined, chapter 12, verses 44 and 45. And these proceed in this way. More than even the yogis. There's something higher than the yogis? Yes. More than even the yogis are those desiring emancipation in complete serenity of mind. Now we comment on the gifts. The gift of food is the best form of charity, as also the giving of money in all ways, as well as the giving of bedding and seats to the devotees of Lord Vishnu and ascetics. The gift of knowledge, vidya, is the highest of gifts. All other gifts, however large, are not as good. So interesting. So now we're talking about, we're continuing with this hierarchy, but now it shifts into giving and in relation to this hierarchy. So now let's comment on these two verses a little bit. More than even yogis are those desiring emancipation in complete serenity of mind. So again, another distinction is made. Let me stop here for a moment. For those who have heard my lectures, my talks for a very long time, let's say years and years, how many times do I sometimes comment about how, when you talk about spiritual seekers, to the common, not as intelligent mind, when they hear spiritual seeker, they just equate them all. That one's a spiritual seeker. This one is, and that one. And yes, so someone comes up to you. I too am a spiritual seeker. Okay, and they're all the same. They're all the same. No. What I've pointed out to people again and again and again is that within this category of quote-unquote spiritual seeker, there is a vast range of not just diversity, but divergence from that term, spiritual seeker. So in other words, an individual may say, oh, I am a spiritual seeker, but that can mean anything. That can mean that the person is a Satanist, and their idea of, oh, spiritual seeking is as selfish and self-centered and hedonistic and perverse as it can be, to someone who, again, they're just kind of new age, and their idea of spirituality is just, again, what can I get me? I want to use, rather than working hard, I want magic to give me money. Rather than working hard, I want magic to give me a mate, etc. Rather than doing in the world, oh, I'm going to use law of attraction, etc., etc. To then continue. Individuals who are religious, but in a fundamentalist sort of way. That is, they take a very doctrinaire, very externalized sort of idea, an exoteric idea of what is spirituality and what is religion, and then going deeper and going deeper. Those individuals who, all right, now they actually are spiritual and spiritual practitioners. But even among spiritual practitioners, there's great diversity. You have a Buddhist who is a spiritual practitioner, let's say a Buddhist monk. I know many Buddhist monks, I have for decades. And, oh, they're serious, they take vows, etc., etc. But what are they seeking? Nothingness. Shunyata. Nothing. That's radically different from an individual who likewise is a spiritual practitioner, living like a monk, practicing yoga, just like the Buddhist monks. Oh, but now they want a personalized divine. Oh, but even then, what aspect of a personalized divine? You see, and on and on and on like this. So we are seeing this, that even when it comes to spiritual people, there are many, many different sorts of individuals in accordance with what they're seeking. Now, all that being said, let's deal with this very first sentence. More than even yogis are those desiring emancipation in complete serenity of mind. Very nice. So even again, when it comes to serious yogis, there are yogis who they still have some ego involved in their practice. So what are they seeking? They're seeking siddhis. They're seeking indeed mystical attainments, not magic with a K, infinitely more powerful than that. Magic with a K is for children. Oh yes, with a K on the end. Magic is for children. We're talking siddhis. We're talking the ability to construct a planet with your mind. And you're not God, you're nothing, you're just a yogi. There are individuals who are seeking such a thing, and yet they're yogis. Do we feel that such individuals have serenity of mind? And not if their biggest goal in life is to create a planet, that's puny. But rather, those yogis, and it's described very nicely here, even more than even yogis are those desiring emancipation in complete serenity of mind. So there are two things here. A, the greatest yogis are those who are seeking actual liberation. Those yogis who actually do want to go beyond karma, beyond ego, beyond illusion, etc., and more who want to have serenity of mind. So in other words, who truly do have the ability to surrender their ego and to allow it to evaporate into nothingness, and thus having serenity of mind. They're not an agitated yogi. They're not a yogi who still has materialistic desires, however subtle those desires may be, however fine seemingly those desires may be. But those yogis who truly have serenity of mind, meaning that they are aiming for the highest. These are the greatest of yogis. Now let's go on. Now we talk about the forms of gifts that should be given to these beings. First, the gift of food is the best form of charity. How nice, how interesting. It starts here, and why does it start with food very specifically? Well, interestingly, many people may not be aware of this, but when an individual is a monk, this is true even in the West as well. Again, this was true during the Middle Ages when it came to, traveling monks, whether they were anything, Franciscan friars, Trappist monks, etc. People would often give them food. The lay people would give them food. This is certainly true throughout the so-called religions of Asia as well. if you go to Buddhist countries, what you'll see will be monks traversing the roadways of, whether it's Thailand or Burma or Vietnam or any of these places, and it is the custom. The custom is bhikshu. And what the custom is that those individuals who are lay people will give the monks quite literally money. Well, this is true in Sanatana Dharma as well. And not only is it true of Sanatana Dharma, interestingly, I myself did this. I told a few people this story, a few of my students actually. When I was in India in 1986, I underwent Brahmana initiation, where I became a Brahmana, I became a Vedic priest. And that being the case, this was part of the ritual, was that at the time that I took initiation, it was myself and maybe 5 other of my godbrothers, and we all dressed in white. These were new clothes that we received, dhoti and kurta and chadar. And then after our initiation was over and we were now officially Vedic priests, we went into the village and we would go from house to house. And of course, most of us, I think one of us did, but most of us didn't know Bengali. That was the local language at the time. And we would go from house to house of individuals who were religious Vaishnavas. And we would just go and say, bhikshu, bhikshu, meaning please give alms, please give alms. And they would literally give us sometimes money, some rupees, often food. And this is a tradition, again, that was at one time found everywhere. So that's why food is the first thing that is mentioned here. That when you're talking about especially one of these yogis who is a person who is striving towards serenity of mind and emancipation, that is liberation, the best thing you can give them is food, because that's what they need more than anything, very practically speaking. But now let's go on. As also the giving of money in all ways. So interesting, not just money, but money in a variety of ways. So this also is being very practical. Again, I've said this again and again and again. Sanatana Dharma, indeed spirituality should be, Sanatana Dharma is very practical. On the one hand, what do we talk about every week? The highest of ideals. The highest of ideals, truly knowing God, giving ourselves to God on the one hand. On the other hand, when you look at actual sages, again, not the ones who are somewhat more fraudulent, who you'll see on YouTube and other places today. No, when you see practical, real sages, they are very practical. The example that I like to give, and really there are hundreds of examples. The example I like to give is Prabhupada. Prabhupada was someone who you will not find someone more dedicated to God than Prabhupada. 24 hours a day he was focused on Krishna, on the one hand. On the other hand, he was known for this. He would take account of every single penny that would come in and leave ISKCON, his movement, his organization. Even at the very beginning, even when he came to America in 1965, 1966, and we were talking about nothing. We were talking about, when he gave a lecture and he asked for donations, sometimes he'd be lucky if the total for that night was $10. But he would account for everything. He knew exactly where every penny was. He knew, all right, well, now I must buy food for the next day. I have to buy this much rice, this much vegetables. I have to buy butter so I can make ghee. It will cost this. And he literally would keep track to the penny. He was practical. So in the same way, Sanatana Dharma is a practical religion. So when it comes to giving money, yes, we are, again, very open and practical about this. Sages do not live without eating. Even Prabhupada had to eat. Even think of the greatest sage you can think of. They had to eat, they had to have shelter, etc. So indeed, giving donations, giving money is another very good way in which you can give. But now let's go on. As well as the giving of bedding and seats to devotees of Lord Vishnu and ascetics. So indeed, very practical. Who would think of these things? This is the Vedic scripture. These are what the Vedic scriptures are like, to the point where they're that specific. If you have to give to devotees of Vishnu, to ascetics, to yogis, give them bedding. They need to sleep on something. Oh, can they sleep on the floor? Probably they'd be fine with that. But you know what? You're not giving for them. You're giving for yourself. That's the thing that people sometimes have difficulty understanding. When you give to a sage, you're not doing that sage any favors. Oh, the sage will thank you. The sage appreciates it. But it's in giving that we are actually helping ourselves spiritually. And that's the thing that we need to always understand. Oh, here's a great sage. Oh, let me give a donation. Oh, here's $1,000. Oh, let me give, some flowers. Oh, let me give this, let me give that. And then you go away thinking, oh man, I'm so great. I gave to that person. And you leave, very puffed up and proud of yourself. Not understanding that the sage, due to the sage's mercy and grace, will thank you for it. But the sage doesn't need it. The sage doesn't need it at all. You're doing yourself a favor in giving. And this is why it gets very practical. Give the sage bedding. Give places to sit for the sage. A sage visits your home. Have them sit in the nicest place. Prepare a place and have them sit there, and then you sit at their feet. You don't sit on their level. That's a mistake. If there's no choice, that's different. That's all right. But point is, you try your best to be as respectful as possible, even in your giving. Now let's go on to this very last. There are two more sentences, both of which are important, but let's go to these last two sentences. The next is, the gift of knowledge, vidya, is the highest of gifts. So very nice. Of all gifts that can be given, giving knowledge, giving truth, giving wisdom. Vidya is an interesting word. There's vidya and there's avidya, which of course means the opposite. Vidya means wisdom, knowledge, truth, intelligence. It has tertiary meanings as well, actually. But then avidya means the opposite of those things. So being in ignorance is avidya. When it comes to wisdom, this is the highest gift that any individual can give. Now it's interesting, the reason why this is a separate sentence, and you'll notice that yogis, sages, nothing like this is mentioned. You don't give knowledge to a yogi. Rather, what's being said here is anyone who gives knowledge, that's the highest gift that you can give. Now, the thing is, almost anyone can give knowledge. I have to say almost. Most people can, in one way or another. The sage, of course, the sage can give knowledge, can give wisdom, that's a given. The sage, by their very activity, by who they are, what to speak of by what they say. They can give knowledge, truth, wisdom to others, etc. But more than this, parents give wisdom to their children. Friends give wisdom to other friends. And on and on and on. When it comes to just human relationships of every form, we can give knowledge. What does that mean? We can give advice, we can give wisdom, we can help someone who's having difficulty by giving them words of encouragement, etc. See, words of encouragement too are knowledge. People don't know this. People sometimes think that encouraging words, inspiring words, is something simply of the nature of the emotional. No. If what you are saying is true, what you are saying is something which is having positive sattvic effect upon the individual. And that is the important thing. It doesn't have to be merely that knowledge means quite literally something that has factual content or is philosophical. If you say to someone, and you mean it because it's true, if you say to someone who's having a hard time, listen, you're intelligent, you're a good person, you're going to get through this. You just gave them truth. If it's true, you gave them truth. So this is why, knowledge, giving knowledge is something that most people can do. You don't need to just be a great sage. And then finally, the last sentence. All other gifts, however large, are not as good. Not as good as that vidya, that knowledge. So these verses end here in a very nice way. Again, speaking about giving. This is the greatest gift that a person can give. More than anything is knowledge, is truth. And again, regardless of who you are, there is no greater gift. All other gifts, so all the other gifts spoken about previously, whether food or money or bedding or anything you can think of, a car, anything, All other gifts, however large, are not as good as giving knowledge, as giving wisdom, as giving truth. So this is what we are to do. Before we end, I want to focus on that very last sentence that was said right here. Indeed, today especially, this is true universally and all throughout time, from the very beginning of time, and it will be to the very end of time, and then when time starts over again, when the universe starts over again. This has always been true, that knowledge is something that is crucial and that any of us can or should give to others. However, today, very specifically in 2024, given the conditions that our world is facing right now, people need to be given knowledge, they need to be given truth, they need to be given everything, again, from philosophy to words of encouragement, everything that is true in the form of words. They need this more than at any other time. So, if anything, I want to end this talk by saying to everyone, both here in our temple, but watching online as well, that if you are to do anything of true and vast importance in this world today, it is this: do everything and anything that you can, regardless of who you are and where you find yourself, as long as you are sincere and good, and as long as you indeed have acquired some true knowledge about Sanatana Dharma, share that knowledge with others, because people need it. People need it today more than ever. Let me just say this. We're not missionaries. We're not like Abrahamists knocking on people's doors. Have you accepted Krishna as your Lord and Savior? We don't we don't do that. We don't bother people. We don't evangelize or anything like that. But we also understand that the knowledge, the truth that we have, literally saves lives. And I cannot even tell you, and I never will because it's private for people. But there are people who I know personally who have been prevented from committing suicide because of Sanatana Dharma. That is how powerful these teachings are. And what do we see in the world around us today? I think most people in our audience have their eyes open. You know what we see. Suffering, suffering, suffering on every level, from the physical all the way up to deeply internally, emotionally, psychically, etc. In people's minds, we see suffering, suffering, suffering. Well, let's help them. I challenge everyone there who is out there watching live right now and who will watch the video of this afterwards, in whatever way you can, take Sanatana Dharma. And that means either big ways or small ways. That means even just sharing links. Take the links to this video and all of our videos of the past, the older ones as well. Share them wherever you can. Share them with individuals. Share them with groups online, etc. With groups, with pages, with forums, anywhere that you can. Take our sayings. If you're on our Telegram group, for example, go there, take some of our quotes, and just share them with people to inspire people. Take verses from the Vedic scriptures that are especially inspiring to yourself and share those everywhere. Take the message of the International Sanatana Dharma Society and indeed give this gift of vidya, of knowledge, to everyone you can, and help us to do the same in every way. So with that, I thank you very much for listening, and I will open things now for questions. If there are any questions about anything that we either discussed today or any aspect of Sanatana Dharma, please feel free. I see that there are many people here now whose names I recognized. Arjuna's here. Arjuna, namaste. We're all thinking about you and hoping you're doing well. I see Om Namo Narayanaya. Hangsa is here. Sudarshana is here from the UK. Krishna Prasada, I know, is here because he's actually about 10 feet away from me in our temple. Bishwajit is here from the UK. Blue Suzaku. So many people. I'm not going to mention everyone's names, but people from all over the world. I see Jason. I see Stillagar, etc. Noah is here. Marcus is here. Very nice. Very good. I see some questions coming in, so let me jump into the questions now because we are somewhat limited with time. And this is two questions actually. I have two questions. One, what is the importance of fire? And two, does the essence of God transcend the energies of God? Very nice. Two very good questions. First of all, as far as fire, you're asking a very general question. It's a nice question nonetheless. But truthfully, I could go into this very deeply as far as ritually, as far as an element. What is the importance of fire, etc. I could talk about metaphysically, as far as Agni, the god of fire, etc. So there are many different aspects we can speak about. But let me just say that generally speaking, let me start from the metaphysical and work our way down actually. Generally speaking, fire is one of the 5 material elements. It is something that is seen as a good, as a positive. Again, there is a god of fire. He is known as Agni, which is the case in all of the ancient religions of the world. You see correlations between all of the various gods in many of the ancient religions. All the ancient religions have a sun god, they have a thunder god, they have an earth goddess, etc., etc. Same thing with fire. There tends to be a fire god as well. Fire, Agni, is there not only in the form of a deva, a god, but fire is within us as well in the form of the inner Agni that is there in the belly that helps us to digest, that gives us bodily warmth, etc. So again, we can go very deeply into this. Now going to the more exterior. Fire ritual is something that you find all throughout the ancient world, and especially what is sometimes termed under the misnomer the Indo-European religions, really Sanatana Dharma and the offshoots of that. When we say the Indo-European religions, this is as an aside. In a few months we're going to talk about this to the point where we're going to make world history, actually. But when it comes to the idea of the so-called Indo-European religions, sadly, of course, what most people do, everyone ranging from atheistic scholars to even people who strive to actually follow the so-called Indo-European religions, they tend to take them all and see them in on a horizontal plane as, they're all equal, they're all the same, we can learn something from one versus the other, etc. No. Individuals who truly understand what is meant by the Indo-European religions understand that what that means is Sanatana Dharma and its later offshoots and inferior offshoots, but the later offshoots of Sanatana Dharma. But in any case, again, more on that in a few months. When it comes to the idea of fire ceremony, you find this among all of the so-called Indo-European religions. So you find this in Zoroastrianism, you certainly find this in Sanatana Dharma itself, you find this in Greco-Roman religion, in later Roman religion at the very least, with the idea of the hearth, and I believe it's Vesta, I think the goddess of the hearth, etc. So you find this in many places where fire is something that's very important ritually. And as I said, I can talk about this very in depth, but it was a general question. I hope that that answers the question, at least as a beginning. But then you say here, does the essence of God transcend the energies of God? Yes. Yes, definitely. As is the case for all living beings. As is the case for all living beings. You see, we are indeed made in God's image. That is, God being that which is the source of all reality, Janma Yasya Yataha. It says in the 2nd verse of the Brahma Sutras that God is the source of all things, the origin of all things. That being the case, we participate in many of the ways of God, not to the same degree, we are not God, but we are like unto God. So that being the case, when you look at the typical human has energies. Of course, we don't really think of it that way in modernity or speak about it in that way, but we have energies. What does that mean? We have energy of mind. We have energy of motion. Even our hair, the fact that our hair grows, that's a type of power, that's a type of Shakti, that's a type of energy. And I can go on and on and on. The typical human being has so many energies. But those energies are subservient to the essence of that person. The fact that I have hair growing, if my hair stopped growing, would that affect my essence? Of course not. Wouldn't affect who I am. and on and on. Oh, let's say that, oh, my mobility was limited somehow. Oh, I'm in a wheelchair and I can't move or something like that. Does that affect my essence? No, it doesn't. It affects ability, but not essence. In the same way, this is true for God as well. God has energies, but those energies are subservient to God, and God is antecedent to his energies. We too are antecedent to the energies. We as essential being come first, and then as accretions are those energies of the essential being. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that answers your question. Again, we can go much deeper, but our time is somewhat limited. Give me a moment to just look for some more questions here. Oh, and as always, for people who are here as well, if you have any questions, please don't be shy. Can I tell my my live stream audience, often what happens is our people here are shy, and I'll even say, do you have questions? Nope, no one says anything. As soon as the live stream is over, then they have questions for me. Krishna Prasada. So if you have any questions, speak up. Very good. Here's another question. Namaste Sri Acharya. What is the relationship between the Sri Sampradaya and the Ramanandis? The Ramanandis are the followers of Ramananda. They are an offshoot of the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. Very simple. Philosophically, they retain a lot of similarity with the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. For that matter, in fact, let me go a little deeper. There are several offshoots where most of them will acknowledge that, oh yes, we are following Vishishta Advaita, but we have our own take, we have our own emphasis, we have our own Ishtadevata. Another one of these, for example, is the Swami Narayana movement, which began in Gujarat a little bit over 200 years ago, something like that, and which is quite big in Gujarat and now other places throughout the world. They are followers of Vishishta Advaita. They acknowledge Ramanuja as the greatest of philosophers, but they also acknowledge their founder, Swami Narayana, as well. And the philosophy is slightly different. But if you speak to almost any Swami of the Swami Narayana sect, they will tell you, oh yes, we follow Vishishta Advaita. We consider ourselves to be followers of Ramanuja. And I've spoken to many of them. Indeed, I was very close to the Swami who was the leader of the Swami Narayana temple just outside Chicago. Massive, beautiful place. And every time I would go visit, he would honor me tremendously. He would bring me to his quarters and we would have prasada together. And it was very nice. And oh yes, they readily acknowledge, oh yes, we are followers of Ramanuja, but as Swami Narayana teaches. The same thing with the Ramanandis. Ramananda, was a follower of Ramanuja Acharya, but again, with a little bit of a difference, and it's an offshoot. So of course this begs the question. These being offshoots, well, why not just go to the original, which is unadulterated, and that is Vishishta Advaita, purely taught, of the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. But I hope that answers the question. Let me see what other questions there are here. A hand is raised. Yes, please.
Namaste Sri Acharya Ji. Thank you for taking my question.
My pleasure.
I was wondering if you could help me better understand the swooning of liberated beings in Vaikuntha. As you've previously explained, that this is when an Atman who's not in Vaikuntha enters into materiality, it causes something akin to a rift. It's a great, powerful thing. Is this similar, but even more powerful in Vaikuntha when it happens, when an Atman intentionally decides to enter this swooning state and enter into materiality without being under the effects of illusionary ego?
No, it's not. It's something that's quite different. So you're comparing the state of swooning of a liberated devotee in Vaikuntha to, let's say, an individual in the Brahma-Jyoti who falls into the material world. Those are the two comparisons?
The Brahma-Jyoti one would not be under illusion either. They're intentionally going into...
So the individual who would intentionally come.
But they're not in the Vaikuntha state. From the Brahma-Jyoti one, they're not Vaikuntha liberated, but they're still free from illusory ego.
Okay, it's still different, even for that person. It has to be different. The reason being, again, all the great acharyas speak about this, including especially Ramanuja Acharya, that even if a person becomes a jivan mukta, or even if they always were a jivan mukta, so addressing more exactly what you're talking about, someone who really, they're in the material world, but they really were never of the material world. Still, there are necessary conditions for their being present within this material world such that they cannot fully manifest for those around them, or even access themselves, and that's voluntarily, the full scope of their Atmanhood. That can only happen upon liberation. So whether the individual is, again, let's say a typical person who, yes, they fell into illusion and they're here for however many lifetimes, but then they come to the point of, yes, really liberation, but while still being in the material world. So again, that's called Jivan Mukta. Or there's someone who they never fell into illusion. It's still the case that they have to acquiesce to the fact that they are Atman within the material world and with the sheaths that are covering the Atman. That being the case, so for example, again, Ramanuja spoke about this. This is why all of the powers of Atman are not available to the Atman within this material world, even if they're an enlightened being. They don't have omniscience, for example. They also don't have full access to all of the purely bhakti-oriented experiences that they would have in Vaikuntha. The reason why is because it's just not a possibility. That being the case, let me put it this way, and this is getting very esoteric. Could they experience that? Yes. But then they would have to leave their body immediately. In fact, they wouldn't have to, it wouldn't be causal. It would be simultaneous, if that makes sense. It's not causal. It's not that, okay, I'm choosing now, regardless of the circumstances, I'm going to experience full bhakti as I would in the Vaikuntha. Now I'm being forced to leave my body. No, it's not causal. It's necessarily simultaneous. To the point where, if you're someone who, you're one of these beings, but you also have something to accomplish in this world, you're not going to be able to. So you're not going to choose that. So does that make sense?
Yes, then just to follow up, just to make it extra clear, then the other being, the being who's in Vaikuntha, who enters into a state of swoon to enact pastimes, is there any reason for them to choose to come here or be chosen to come here other than enacting pastimes then? Because they've already reached that stage, so they're immune to that previous phenomena you discussed of experiencing bhakti and then being forced to leave because it's too potent.
In theory, even such a being, if they are, let's say, ordered directly by God, by Krishna, by Sriman Narayana, to come to the material world for a specific reason, that can happen. In other words, they can do that. They can choose to do that. Even then, again, just due to the necessary conditions of being within this world, their abilities spiritually would necessarily be demarcated. But they're choosing that. Yeah. So does that answer the question?
Thank you very much, Acharyaji.
My pleasure. Very good. Good question. Here's another nice question that is here. I'll just check the time. After this, maybe we'll take one more brief question, but then that'll be it. We'll stop there. But the question is, how does one focus solely on actions and not fixate on the results in a goal-driven world that values winning and results? That is, toxic winning passes for wisdom, since weaker people are readable to them. I see, are readable to them. Very good. All right, so essentially, how does one focus solely on actions and not fixate on the results in a goal-driven world that values winning and results? Very good. Well, let me answer this, actually. The answer is a very nuanced one. Let me ask you, again, both the individual who asked the question, but then let me ask people in general. For an individual like Prabhupada, for an individual like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, for an individual like Ramanuja, let's go even deeper, for an individual like Narada Muni, do they have goals? What?
Yes.
Do they have goals within the material world?
Yes.
Yes, they do. So you see, again, let's not even look at, let's say human acharyas of the past. No, let's look at Narada, not just a rishi, the king of all rishis. We see him all the time having goals. He comes to the material world, whether he's on a higher planet, whether he's on the earth plane, and what does he do? He meets with kings and he teaches them and he advises them. Do this, don't do that. You know, when Krishna was going to come upon the earth, he goes to Kamsa and he warns him, etc., etc. So you can be a sage and have goals. Now, what is the difference? It's a very simple one. It's a matter of his goals are not for himself alone. His goals are for God. What he is doing purely for God. In the same way, an individual can be within the material world. They can, in fact, let me go very deeply into this. A sage, and then what to speak of individuals who are spiritual practitioners. We can have goals. We can strive to win. Did Arjuna strive for victory? Yes. But he strived for victory in a detached way. Oh, what does that even mean? You see, that I think is at the root of your question that you're asking here. Because it sounds contradictory. That, we can have a goal, we can strive, our goal can be to win, we can want victory, but at the same time, we do not want victory in this self-centered, egotistical sort of way, where, the victory is for me and for me alone. But rather, I am simply an instrument of God, and my goal is to attain victory, but that victory is my service toward God. When I have that victory I will take and place at the feet of God as the humblest of offerings. It's the mindset that is of importance. It's the mindset. Again, any important sage of the past, you'll see this. They had goals. They wanted the goals to be achieved. It's not that, I have a goal, but whatever, who cares? God himself has ordered me, I must do this. All right, I'll do it, but whatever. No, you wanted to be successful. When Prabhupada came to the West, was his idea, yes, Krishna wants me to go there and to teach the entire world about him. Yeah, I'll do that, but whatever. No. I may have victory, I may not. I may make lots of devotees, maybe nothing. But no, he wanted triumph, but not for himself. He wanted triumph for Krishna. For yourself, nothing. And not literally nothing. You have to have what you need. But the point is, your victory is not for you alone. Your victory is for something higher. Ultimately, as a spiritual person, our victory is for God. For a true hero, how do you define what is a true hero? They have victory, but they don't have victory for themselves. They have victory for their people. They have victory for their cause. I am a knight fighting for my king. What makes me a true hero? That I will declare victory on behalf of my king's name, on behalf of my nation, on behalf of my people, etc. That's a hero versus a conqueror, a self-centered conqueror. The conqueror, I want victory for myself. A hero, I want victory on behalf of something beyond myself. But then spiritually, what is the sage or the serious spiritual practitioner? They want to win. They want victory. They want to achieve their goal, but not merely for themselves at all, but for God. And more, they will strive for that victory. They will work hard to achieve that victory, but let's say they give it 100% of themselves to the point where they have sweated to the point of losing 20 pounds. And after all that, they lose. At this point, do they go into mourning? See, again, this is the difference between the spiritual individual versus the self-centered one. The self-centered one will be angry afterwards and will want vengeance and on and on and on. The sage will say, all right, I gave it everything, and I know and God knows I did, and I did not have victory. All right, next time. And they sit and they meditate. That's the difference. So indeed, that we want victory. What do we say all the time? Sriman Narayana. Jaya! Jaya! Victory! Victory to Sriman Narayana. Victory to the Dharma nation. Victory to the Solar dynasty. Victory to the International Sanatana Dharma Society. If you are a follower of Sanatana Dharma, you encounter this word Jaya all the time. Jaya Sri Rama, not whatever Sri Rama. No, victory to Sri Rama, not defeat to Sri Rama. You would be a demon. But victory. You want something. You have a goal. You desire. You want to win. You want triumph. For yourself? No. For God. And that is karma yoga. That is bhakti. That is devotion. Doing in devotion. Action in devotion. Such that, if anything, I've said this a million times, again, this is the stereotype, that there are people of the world who get things done, get things accomplished, and then there are the yogis who just kind of do nothing. No, it's the yogis who get things accomplished more than anyone. More than anyone. It's the yogis, actually. It is the sages who change the face of the planet periodically. So yes, we are absolute servants of God. We do nothing for ourselves on the one hand, but then on the other hand, we change the face of the planet. So I hope that answers the question. Be a yogi, change the face of the planet for good. Very good, Keshava. Namaste. Thank you for your wonderful comment. Let me answer maybe this last question, actually. This will be the last question that I answer. And it is, Dear Acharyaji, I heard that in ISKCON they don't use the index finger in japa meditation. Is this the same in Sri Vaishnavism? This is the case throughout Sanatana Dharma. Yeah, without doubt. This is the case all throughout Sanatana Dharma. And what is meant by that is that when you have japamala, actually, in fact, let me grab my actual japamala that I use for my own sadhana. When you have actual japamala, you do your best not to touch it with this finger, but rather with the middle finger and the thumb. And this is how you meditate, is that you have your middle finger and the thumb touching the actual bead. You try your best not to touch with that finger. Indeed, that's why we use a bead bag. And this also is not an ISKCON thing. This has been in existence thousands of years before ISKCON existed. Actually, bead bags in various forms historically. We have images of bead bags going back thousands of years, actually. They've always existed. But this is why there is a special hole by which you stick the index finger outside so that you won't even accidentally touch the beads. And you can't see, of course, but within the bag, I'm holding the beads with the middle finger and the thumb. And you say the mantra, Om Namo Narayana, Om Namo Narayana. And like that, you go from bead to bead to bead, like this. Now, of course, this begs the question, why? Well, there's an entire video, what is it called? Something about japa meditation, I forget. How to practice, thank you. Yeah, after almost 400 videos, it's hard to remember the titles. How to practice japa meditation, where I explain why you do not use this finger. This is a finger of power, as I explained in that video. That is, that it's understood that power, and especially for the yogi or anyone who is a disciplined individual, the yogi or the martial artist, you have the ability to literally shoot power out of that finger if you point it, but with the right intentionality. So it's for that reason that, to be respectful, you try not to touch the beads with that finger, because you're reserving that finger for when you need it. Brahmanas will use this finger to say a curse upon someone, and oh yes, Brahmanas will say curses on evil people, not on good people, on evil people. But you take your Brahmana thread and you wrap it around 3 times and you point at the person and you say a curse. In the same way, even in martial arts, even for that matter in Tibetan Buddhism, you have wrathful deities. And like I did with the previous video, that's about a dozen years old now, I won't actually do it toward anyone, but in martial arts, you'll have this kind of motion where you are using that finger. Also in, again, with wrathful Tibetan deities, often you'll see you'll see them in this kind of emotion, where it's obvious that they are in attack mode. So the reason why we don't use this finger is because that's what it's used for, primarily, is attack mode, let us just say. So you want to curse someone, you use that finger. You're about to beat them physically in a martial art competition or something, same thing. You use that finger in this sort of emotion to indicate that, all right, now I'm going to defeat you, etc. So that's why we don't use that finger to touch the beads. And this is something that has nothing to do with ISKCON. Every legitimate, let's say, form of Sanatana Dharma also practices the same thing. You do not use that finger to touch the beads. Very good. All right, wonderful. So with that, why don't we stop here? We're a little bit over. Unless, do you have any questions? Are we good?
I did have a question about relics.
Very good. I thought you did. Please.
Well,
I just had a feeling.
so I know we don't usually have relics because in the past we did cremation, but in Buddhism there's supposedly still some relics of Buddha actually in a few places, but there are a lot of stories about that. But I was wondering if it's worth visiting those or what you think of those.
Yeah, definitely. That's interesting that you asked that. There are some traditions where relics, and what you mean by relics, of course, are, well, relics, generally speaking, can mean anything that was possessed by the great sage. It can be, the sage passes away and you still have their bead bag. Well, that would be a relic, or their shoes. Or in some cases, it is a part of their body. It can be their hair that's left over, or a bone, or something like that. And you find this tradition especially it started in Buddhism, but then in Christianity as well. You don't really find this in the other Abrahamic religions so much, but in Christianity, for example, all throughout Europe, there'll be such and such church, and it has the thigh bone of saint, somebody, something like that. But yes, you find this in Buddhism as well, where I know in Nepal, in parts of India, in Sri Lanka, they have a tooth of the Buddha or something else of the Buddha, and they'll build a massive stupa on top of that, and people will go on pilgrimage. You don't find that as much with body parts at all in Sanatana Dharma, because such body parts are considered to be non-sattvic, but rather you will have that with other things, again, with objects more so than body parts. So there will be samadhis, what are called samadhis, not in the sense of the state of samadhi, but in the sense of a shrine that is a memorial to a specific sage, and sometimes there will be something that the sage owned. Again, it might be the shoes of the sage. I'll give you an example. In Vrindavana, there is the samadhi of Prabhupada, where his body is actually buried, and they built a nice temple there. But then, interestingly, in Mayapur, which is hundreds and hundreds of miles away, there's what they call the Pushpa Samadhi, where they, at the time, took the flower garland that Prabhupada was wearing as he left his body. And they took that, and they took it to Mayapur, and they buried that underground, and they built a memorial on top of it. Pushpa means flowers. Pushpa Samadhi. And people will go there on pilgrimage, and they'll offer their obeisances. Because can you imagine that this was the garland of flowers he was wearing when he left this world? So they took it hundreds of miles away, and they built a memorial over it called the Pushpa Samadhi. So that's more what you find in Sanatana Dharma, not relics in the form of the body part of some saint, but something that the saint had or used or owned, something like that. Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, it's a good tradition. It's a fine tradition. Honestly, and even in Buddhism, I personally see nothing wrong with the idea that, oh yes, they have a tooth of the Buddha as a relic, and they built a stupa, a nice memorial over it. That's a good thing. It's good to go on pilgrimages like that. If it's something that will remind you, that will make you think of the Buddha, his teachings, his example, etc., then that's a good thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, very good. Well, why don't we stop here for now? And let me tell people, what we are going to be doing next week very quickly. Again, we're going to be making an exception. We're going to be taking a little bit of a break from looking at verses. It's going to be Q&A next week. So it will be our July Q&A session. So that's what we will do next Sunday at 2 p.m. So for those who are out there in the live stream audience, anyone who are here, start accumulating your questions. Even with that, I can't guarantee, just due to time, that I can answer them all. But next week we'll have questions and answers exclusively, no talk. With that, again, I thank you all very, very much for being here. Namaste. Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Surya Vangsha Jayate.
Surya Vangsha Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society Jayate.
Victory to Sanatana Dharma. Victory to the Dharma nation. Victory to the Solar dynasty. Victory to the International Sanatana Dharma Society. Evam Bhavatu. By God's grace, may such victory be so. And it is inevitable and it is unstoppable that such victory shall be so. With that, everyone, between now and the next time that we get together, I ask you all that you please take very good care of yourselves in every way during these very turbulent times ahead. And I ask you also, in the words of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, Ma Shuchaha. Do not fear. Do not fear. Do not fear.